mo bititi ajanka. Ajanka be yi obenya hwe no wa befa no. Ante mansa. Agugwa santi achi. Ti ani ba. Osi owo wa fa no ma me sewa. Amane wa ya ajanka. And then him say, we are seeing about 10 in him and a baby deity. What brand new way, Juma? What's it that you know, my dear moo? Now, so, who am I near what brand? Yes, some more. Mammy, dear, I work with that baby. Auntie Massassi, Mammy say, I got that baby bassa. Form of bro, a baby, a son in the Kunwa, Juma. I'd man a day in, but what for Bemay and Jobe? Or Bepna Pussy, the Dabin United of Bassa. If you are not smart, can say, you don't need your work past Samado. Or from Massa, this is the Fubia Papa, the baby Bassa. Kusa sabaka jebini na ndamasi Ankuna mabro, okro masa Bema baba takwa Kusa sabaka jebini na ndamasi Ore uniba, okro masa Bema baba takwa Let me prep you.
Just chill out and leave that dial right where it is on 105.7 FM.
Interrogating Africa with Dr. Eden Adote on Radio Universe 105.7 FM every Thursday at 2 p.m.
Interrogating Africa. A Radio Universe. Africa. A Radio Universe. This is your time. A Radio Universe. Africa no 5.7.
Interrogating Africa with Dr. Eden Adote on Radio Universe 105.7 FM every Thursday at 2 p.m.
Interrogating Africa. A Radio Universe. Africa. A Radio Universe. This is your time. A Radio Universe. Africa no 5.7.
Good afternoon, listeners. You're listening to Radio Universe 105.7 FM, and the program is Interrogating Africa. Interrogating Africa is an Institute of African Studies program that seeks to bring to the fore cutting-edge research findings by fellows of the Institute and from other academics across the globe. It is my pleasure today to introduce my co-host, our former executive producer, now turned co-host, Dr. Mijiba Freywat. And she's going to be helping me throughout the month to host this program. Dr. Mijiba Freywat, welcome to Interrogating Africa. I know you've always sat on the other side. How does it feel to be on this side?
Oh, it's definitely an exciting experience to be on this side. Can't
I'm sure you're really going to enjoy the next year.
Oh, I am going to absolutely enjoy the next year.
Okay. So today we're still in the festival mode, and we continue our discussions on Pan Africanism. And today we're going to be looking at Pan Africanism in the 21st century and looking at the CFA Frank Zone. We're privileged to have with us another friend today. Today is a family affair, a very good friend of ours, Dr. Dianka Lagoke from the U.S. and originally he's an Ivorian who lives in the U.S. So today he's going to look at issues revolving around the CFA zone and how that impacts the Pan-African project. As usual, you can join the conversation on social media platforms. The WhatsApp number is 0555400508. The Twitter handle is @InteroAfrica, and the Facebook page is Intero Africa. We're streaming this live on our Facebook page. We'd like to acknowledge the support of the Institute of African Studies, Yuri Lodge, the home of cross-cultural experience. And you can reach Yuri Lodge on 0302513386 or 7 or 0544306255 for your lodgings, meetings, and events. For more information on the Kwame Nkrumah Festival, you can go to the website, where there's www.iasinkrumah.com. The Twitter handle is @IASNkrumah, and the hashtag is Reimagining Nkrumah. Dr. Dianka, welcome to Interrogating Africa.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Edem Adote. It's a pleasure, and thanks to my friend and sister, Mjiba Freeholt, and we're going to have a nice conversation.
Thank you very much. Dr. Dianka Lagoke is a specialist in African political affairs, issues of African development, Pan-Africanism, and Ubuntu philosophy. He's a professor of African history and world history in the Department of History and Political Science at Montgomery College, Maryland in the USA. He's the founder of the Revival of Pan-Africanism Forum. The website is www.revivalofpanafricanism.org. It is a public forum which engages a permanent conversation on Africa and issues of the World African Union from a Pan-African perspective. He has appeared on several international news organizations such as Voice of America, Russia Today, Hispan TV, Australian Broadcast Corporation, Democracy Now!, Al Jazeera, CCTV, TVC News, and TRT. So you agree with that? Dr. Lagoke is an expert on the issues we're going to be looking at today. So let's start off with this. When we talk about the CFA, what exactly are we looking at? Okay. What is the CFA franc? How many francs are there? Because there's some confusion as to whether they are 2, 3, 1. How many exactly are there?
Okay. Let's say that the CFA franc zone is a very, very important and burning issue in Africa. Mm-hmm. I know the French authorities and with some of the African leaders that they put in power since 1960, they try to avoid the conversation. It is a currency that is used in 14 African countries, mm-hmm. with 2 monetary unions, one in West Africa, one in Central Africa, and then with 2 central banks, one in West Africa, one in Central Africa, and on the boards of each of those banks, we have the representatives of the French government. Now, the funny thing with the CFA franc is that even though it has the same name now, it used to be called Colonie Française Africaine, meaning that CFA in French, like the French, like African colonies. And then it is a currency created by De Gaulle around the year 1945. So since 1945 to today, that currency has been in force. Now, as an Ivorian, I can have the same bill, the CFA franc, but when I go to Central Africa, to Brazzaville, mm-hmm. I cannot use this. I cannot use it. So we have to convert our CFA into euros or dollars to go to an African country in the Central Park and convert that into, the CFA, the local currency of that central part of Africa. So, Pan-Africanists, most of the time, we're focusing on neo-colonialism, colonialism. Somehow they they neglected, that issue, and then we think that it's supposed to be a tenet of a new Pan-Africanism that we are promoting, and that's why we are putting emphasis, on that debate. Now, one last thing before we go into, into depth, we deposit at least 50 or 60% of our foreign reserves in the French public treasury since 1960. So everything we do when Ivory Coast sells its cocoa, the money that Ivory Coast earn, half of it, or it used to be more, but now it's half of it, has to be deposited in the French public treasury. And this is how, this is the fate of those 14 African countries, and this certainly is, CFA cannot be a tool of development. It is, for us, a tool of domination and dispossession, exploitation, and then expropriation.
What countries use the CFA? Are they only former French colonies, or there are some other countries besides former French colonies?
Yeah, most of them have. I don't think if Cape Verde is one of them, but there are 14. The West African West African Monetary Economic Union, with Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, Senegal, there, and then I think that there is one of those Guinea that was added to the list. So we have 8 in West Africa and 6 in the central part of Africa. And it's a beautiful question, because most of them were French colonies, and then it's a beautiful question because it's just the replica of the 2 colonial federation that France put into place during the colonial time. We have the French West Africa, and then we have the French Equatorial Africa. So, and then what the Europeans did, they put into place a system of colonial management, forced labor, and then the Afro-European armies, and then the concessionary companies, and on the financial level, they put into place, some currencies. In the case of in the case of Africa, or in the case of France, we have what they call the franc zone, which is different from the CFA franc zone. So we can talk about the franc zone in a few. And with the British, you guys had the sterling zone, and the Belgian had the Belgian franc zone, and the Spaniard had the peseta zone, and then the Brazilian, I believe, had the escudo franc zone. But all those colonial currencies that were put into place by the Europeans, the only one that is survived, that shrunk, but that is surviving, it is the franc, the CFA franc. In the past, it used to be called the franc zone in the Pacific, in the Indian Ocean, in North Africa, in different other parts. All those countries that France colonized, they were linked within, or they were linked to that franc zone, which is different from the CFA franc zone. Now, Lebanon becomes independent in 1948, and they leave the zone. Syria in 1948 leaves the zone. And Indochina leaves the zone, certainly after the defeat of Bien Dien Phu, December 1954. They leave the zone. And Tunisia and Morocco, they leave the zone in 1956. But now the question is, why Black Africa is still there? It is not that easy. And I believe, that's the conversation we're going to have now.
Okay, so I just want to go back to something you said at the first question, because I just want to make sure that our listeners and we are clear. So you said 50 or 60% of all foreign reserves must be deposited into the French public treasury.
Yes, that's the rule.
Yes. So what exactly does that mean? Where does the money go? Who benefits from the money? Does France benefit from it?
Okay, if there's some beautiful questions again. I did not expect, to have that interview here. But it's a beautiful question. Because guess what? When people talk about the fate or the tragedy of Africa, there are things that people forget, particularly in the Francophone Africa. De Gaulle, we were young kids, we learned De Gaulle was a great leader. He organized the Brazzaville Conference in 1944, and he promised to give independence to those African countries. So this is what we learned. But 1944 and 1960, when 17 African countries became independent, including the French colonies, it took 16 years. So when de Gaulle was fighting against Marshal Pétain regime, who sided with Hitler, with Germany, so de Gaulle wanted to go and rally, the colonies that they control in order to organize the resistance, and he put together a movement called La France Libre, the Free France. And this is how he was going to start that system, which was enforced, he put into place by the Germans in France, and then he was going to use that to try and export on behalf of, to export the colonies' resources, and then garner enough money, for him, to pursue his political project. And he was going to become president eventually. And later on, he's going to come back to power in 1958, when France was in a state of chronic instability with the parliamentary system. So de Gaulle wanted a strong presidency. So then there is that new constitution in 1958, which, but at the same time, was going to establish the Franco-African community, whereby those African countries who were linked to France through the colonial federation, now they were going to be linked to the metropolis individually. It's not going to be the colonial federation anymore. It's not going to be the French West Africa linked to France individually. Ivory Coast has a connection with France, Upper Volta with France, and so and so. And it was in that movement that they were going to put into place various systems, according to which France was supposed to be in charge of foreign affairs. France was supposed to be in charge of the economies. France was supposed to be in charge of the financial systems of those colonies. And then now, defense and monetary and many other things. And this is how, when they gave the independence to our leaders, because our independence in Ivory Coast, for instance, was negotiated, they made our leaders sign some secret agreement according to which the resources in the soil of those Francophone colonies have to go to France first, so our countries cannot do any other trade partnership with any other metropolis outside France. So that CFA, France, and all the things, they fit into that. And Houphouët-Boigny, who was the first president of Ivory Coast and the leader of the Rassemblement Démocratique Africain, which was like a Pan-African movement, even though he was not advocating Pan-Africanism the way Kwame Nkrumah did. And he was going to talk about France-Afrique, which means that Africa has to be linked to France, when Nkrumah was talking about Pan-Africanism. And then there was a big debate between France-Afrique and then Pan-Africanism, and Houphouët-Boigny in the context of the Cold War, and many others, they were going to go along with that system. But there were some who did not agree with the system of that monetary union with France. And then with France, and then, we can talk about that maybe in the next questions.
So Kwame Nkrumah did sort of promote one currency throughout the continent. So if I was a novice and perhaps didn't understand the exploitative nature of relationship between these quote-unquote Francophone countries and France, I would say, well, one currency that could theoretically move between all 14 of these countries would be a good thing. What would you say to that?
Yeah, because some of the principles of the CFA franc, some of them, there are 4 or 5, but there are 2. I will talk about one that they call the convertibility. In other words, France is going to guarantee the convertibility of our CFA franc on the international market. So they are like our guardians and like our uncles and anything you can imagine. But yes, it gave a sense of stability. But data show that growth is very slow in those Francophone countries, even though they could reduce inflation. Even though, but it's more complicated than that, because again, anything you do has to go through France. You want to buy a tractor as a Nigerian investor, you have your money, You cannot trade directly with somebody who is in China or somebody. You cannot. You have to go through that system because of those central banks I was talking about. And then the West African Central Bank, the headquarters is in Dakar, but they have some branches in those countries. And then it is even more. I don't want to use some of those words, but Ivory Coast put its money there, and they say, you know what? We have to do like a pooling of reserves of all those countries. So in other words, when Burkina Faso, there's a deficit in Burkina Faso, and there is, for instance, some benefit with Ivory Coast. The money of Ivory Coast is going to help reduce, the deficit of Burkina Faso, for instance. But why we cannot do that among ourselves? And why it has to be in the French public treasury? And then when we import everything we do, it has to go to the same system. Now listen to this now. When we talk about France-Afrique, it's a web of multifaceted network between France and its former colonies. The banking system in Ivory Coast or in West Africa, 60% of the banking system is in the hands of the French banks. So what can you do? So, and then we talk about, for instance, those captive markets during colonial time. So if, for instance, we want to do something with France has the priority. They come to the country. There is a project, for instance, with the third bridge that Mr. Ouattara wanted to build. The Chinese estimate was decent. The French came, they overpriced it, they did it, and then they are the one who control the third bridge in Ivory Coast. They control the telephonic sector, the communication sector, they control the water sector, they control the electricity sector. Give me any name of a very productive sector in the hands of the French. So this goes beyond the currency, and at the same time, they give themselves the right to do capital flight. They give themselves, they have all those systems not to pay, for instance, the taxes on everything they do. So these two is a very important element that is at the basis of underdevelopment in many Francophone countries.
Listeners, the program is still Interrogating Africa with Dr. Edem Adote and Dr. Mjiba Freywat. We are in conversation with Dr. Nyaka Lagoke, and we're looking at Pan Africanism in the 21st century and the CFA zone. You can join the conversation. Our WhatsApp number is 0555400508. The Twitter handle is @InterroAfrica, and the Facebook page is InterroAfrica. We're streaming this live on our Facebook page. Before we go for a break, Dr. Nyaka, if the long list of problems that African countries are facing using the CFA, if that is the case, why are they still using it anyway? Some countries have moved away, Guinea and some other countries you listed.
Guinea come back. Yeah.
Why are the other ones still using the currency if things were that terrible?
That's one of the questions I was expecting. So thanks very much. I didn't want to do like those people that go to interview and they ask themselves the questions. So I didn't want to do that. I had to be patient. So this is what happened. So 1958. And one thing very important in 1958 is that the French say, you know what, if you want to be independent, that referendum. And then in like one of the Mjiba's people, Secretary of Guinea, you say, hell no, I want to be independent. The French say, oh yeah, you want to be independent? No problem. Everything that they had in Guinea, everything, like bomb, everything, they took it. And then when you go to Guinea, sometimes, you know what, you wonder if saying no was the right thing to do. Anyway, so that was one thing. And they use different type of methods. Enticing people, seducing people, charming people, threatening our leaders. And then when they don't have any other choice, you know what they do? They kill you. And this is what happens. So around the time of independence, there were, I'm not going to go into detail, but there are two countries that, not even three, but let's say Upper Volta, they even wanted to have their own currency. And Cameroon, they wanted to have their own currency. But the country that really fought to get its own currency was Togo of Sylvanus Olympio. So the French were doing delay tactics, we will negotiate, do not rush. We will see if you really want that, we can give you the right to have your own currency. And they told him, you do not have to share the information with other African leaders. It has to be secret, a secret deal. But guess what? January 12, like in the mid-January 1963, your delegation comes to France, and we're going to sign the agreement, and then you're going to have your currency. January 12, January 13, the night of January 12, coup d'etat in Togo. And then Sylvanus Olympio assassinated. And then the ones, forgot the name of, I think, Grunichi, who he was in exile in France, and now he came back as one of the leaders, and he said, we don't even understand why people want to leave, the CFA franc zone. This is the beautiful thing, for Togo. We want to remain in that system. So this was a turning point in the history about the debate of the CFA franc. And then I always said that we need to put into context. 1961, Patrice Lumumba was assassinated. And then 1964, Nelson Mandela was going to be in prison for 27 years. And then 1965, Malcolm X was going to be assassinated. 1968, Dr. King was going to be assassinated. And February 24, 1966, Kwame Nkrumah was going to be overthrown. So the people who could symbolize, the struggle, the resistance, and the dignity of Africa, they were killed, assassinated, or imprisoned. So now the French, with the neocolonial, they put into place some leader they could control. This is how the CFA franc has been in place for decades. And now there is a new conversation. Certainly after the break, we will come back to that. Thank you very much.
All right, okay. So we'll take a short musical break, and when we come back, we'll be delving into some of the issues that have arisen out of this conversation. We'll be right back.
Africa unite, 'cause we're moving right out of Babylon, and we're going to our father's land. Yeah. How good and how pleasant it would be before God and man, yeah, to see the unification of all Africans, yeah. Has it been said already? Let it be done, yeah. We are the children of the Rastaman. We are the children of the Iron Man. Oh, Africa unite, 'cause the children wanna go home, yeah. Africa unite, 'cause we're moving right out of Babylon, and we're grooving to our father's land. Yeah. How good and how pleasant it would be before God and man to see the unification of all Rastaman. Yeah. Has it been said already? Let it be done. I tell you who we are under the sun. We are the
have with us in the studio Dr. Nyaka Lagoke, and we're examining Pan Africanism in the 21st century and the CFA Frank Zone. You can join us on social media, WhatsApp 055-540-0508, on Twitter @Intero Africa, and Facebook Intero Africa. So we're going to begin to continue to interrogate this really exciting and interesting, well, it's not really exciting, but this topic on the CFA Frank and how it's impacting not just Francophone Africa, but Africa as a whole. Nyaka, Dr. Lagoke, I'm sorry. Can you talk to us a little bit more about not just the CFA Frank Zone, but also what is the relationship between Pan-Africanism and the CFA Frank Zone? What do you think that relationship is? Good, bad, or indifferent?
Yeah, your question is going to give me the opportunity, to touch different aspects. Pan-Africanism is not a static phenomenon. It evolves and then it has to adapt to new challenges. And of course, during colonial time, our forefathers were fighting against colonialism and also, for the development of Africa. Now in the 21st century, I am one of those people trying to come with some new tenets, around which, we can organize, the Pan-African struggle. And as that France Africa has been overlooked, and then we think that it's very important because if we can defeat the CFA Frank, so it's going to be a leap forward, for the Pan-African struggle. And this year, January 7, 2017, numbers of grassroots organizations launched what they call a CFA, like an anti-CFA Frank campaign. And then they organized simultaneous conferences in many African capitals in Europe. And then on February 11, they did the same thing. So there is a growing indignation of many Africans against that CFA Frank debate. Now, even in how people started talking about the CFA Frank again, there are many people who tried to write about in the early 70s. The Egyptian Samir Amin wrote a pamphlet against the CFA Frank, and they said he was a Marxist, so people could not even listen to him. There are so many other writers who wrote about that. But the Stanley Fisher is an American, MIT professor, I believe, and then he wrote against, the CFA Frank when he was working at the World Bank. They said that, he was expressing American imperialism. That was the French saying that, and with the propaganda, so it became a particular issue. So after that, some other Africans, they started writing on the topic. And one of them, his name is Célestin Munga. It's in French, but beautiful book. Célestin Munga, Nicolas Bou from Ivory Coast in France. So they're starting writing about that's the CFA Frank. So it fits in the Pan-African discourse. Around that discourse, we can come together as one because unity and solidarity are Pan-African values. And in the Ivory Coast, during the electoral stalemate, there were two leaders, Gbagbo, the former president, and Mr. Ouattara. Both of them, they claimed, victory. And then the French sided with Alassane Ouattara. So as they were using all the power, to flex the muscle and then break Gbagbo, they put into place some economic sanctions. And some of those economic sanctions, no boats could come on the port of Ivory Coast because our medicine comes from overseas. And then one day, Ivorian, they go to the bank, all the French banks, because they control the sector, they close the banks and people could not have access to their own money. And this was going, to revive or revamp the debate about the CFA Frank, even though Gbagbo Laurent is not a Pan-Africanist, but his tragic fate and then his struggle embedded in African nationalism, and then also because he wanted to resist, the neo-colonial of war against Ivory Coast, they thought and they tried to put together their own currency during the crisis. And then if you want to know why they bombed him, this is one of the real reasons why he had to be bombed. Because Ivory Coast is, the most important economic power in West Africa, Francophone countries. And then if Ivory Coast could have its own currency, it means the disintegration of the CFA Franc. And then, so I said it was ill-advised, it was ill-conceived, and then you don't do a currency in the context of war against a neo-colonial power, they will never let you prosper, and they will destroy that currency. But anyway, this was going to spark the debate about whether or not when African countries have to remain within the CFA franc zone. So today, we are using that debate, to try and educate people so that people can know that this can be a very important tenet within the France-Afrique conversation, a tenet of a novel articulation of Pan Africanism.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm clear, because you said something that struck to me. I'm an average person in Ivory Coast, Abidjan, and there's a struggle at the top. Gbagbo, Mr. Ouattara. I go to the bank. I need to take out some money to go to the market. The bank is closed and my account has been frozen. So I just want to make sure I'm clear and everyone's clear that when you are saying that 60% of banks in France in Ivory Coast are controlled by the French, that means at any moment that those banks and your funds can be frozen.
Frozen, they can give an order, so that when the decision comes from Paris, and that's it.
So that also, how does that in itself impact the economy?
Oh yes, when I was talking against all those things, some people thought it was a bad Gbagbo. Yes, of course, I had and I have an emotional attachment to Gbagbo. When I was young, we followed his struggle, and then later on, there were some missteps in his political pathway, and then I had to distance myself from some of his political positions. But it goes beyond Gbagbo. It was about the people of Ivory Coast. You are sick. You talk about the banking system. The people, they could not have access, to the medication because there was no medication that could come into the country. This is how you see how fragile and how, it's how fragile our states are. The medication comes from India, the financial system, the monetary system, import, export controlled by the West or now, by Asia also. So, this is how we see that, we have to really organize the struggle better. And yes, my people were hurt during that electoral crisis, and it was very, very painful. So now I go to have access to the monies, and they could not have access to the medication and many other aspects during the electoral stalemate.
By looking at the relationship between the franc zone and France itself, would we say that there's been some benefit to the people of the zone, the average person, by being in that zone? Are things cheaper, for instance? Because are things, products, commodities cheaper, for instance, by being in the franc zone?
Yeah, the question is one of the most difficult questions. Because people who support the CFA franc, this is what they say. There is no inflation, we can guarantee the convertibility of the CFA franc, and then, you have access to capital. But no, the money that the African diaspora sends to Africa is higher, bigger than, the money that the European or the French they put in our system. So we do not have access to capital the way they say. So this is a myth. Now, I will quote Nkrumah and say that Africans should be allowed to make their own mistakes. You see what I'm saying, right? We should be allowed to make our own mistakes. Guinea, Conakry, Sékou Touré had this problem in 1958, but today Guinea is still there. As we speak, the one who is responding to the French imperial narrative or French neocolonial narrative in Africa is the president of Guinea. They even put them in power. So even the leaders that we do not admire so much, they understand that things cannot continue like that. It's not even an economic issue. It's a political issue. Why my money has to be in the public treasury of the one who colonized my ancestors? Why? That's the question. That will be my answer to that question.
And I think the other question would be, why would you allow your money to be in somebody's bank account?
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. It's the same. That's the system. The system they put into place. It's not, seriously, it is not easy. Right? Sometimes we talk like that. It is not easy. People do not know how the French function. They do not know. And even when Gbagbo, when he was fighting to become president, he thought he knew them. And then he's an historian, came to power, and then people are going to they have a system, to try. Like I said in the beginning, they will charm you. they will seduce you, they will entice you, they will threaten you, and then later on, they will destroy you. If they cannot kill you, they bring a civil war. Because do not forget, when they knew that Baba had wanted to do like an independent program for Ivory Coast, even though he maybe did not have all the elements of the know-how to, they give you a civil war. And then you're going to be battling with the civil war all that time. So, in order to conclude on that element, we need to be brave enough. We have to be willing to sacrifice and to die. And then this is the struggle of my generation. And then I and many others, we will be talking about that until our people understand. Tomorrow, we can have some bilateral relationship with friends, but we cannot be engaged in commercial and trade relationship with friends on unequal terms. And then because we claim our independence, and then we aspire, to be developed, and then in Ivory Coast, 50% of the people in Ivory Coast are poor. But the multinationals, controlled by France and some other, by the Lebanese, the control is not like in Ghana. Almost everything is controlled. The most important productive sectors are in the hands of the French. Oh, let me give you one more thing. The third bridge that they built. The third bridge, and people were so excited. Yes, we have the third bridge. I was saying, well, people are crazy. There are 640,000 bridges in America. And then we have the third bridge, so we are so excited. By the way, but the bridge was nice. I saw the picture. Yeah, well, let me say this. 640,000 bridges in America. So when 10% of those bridges are not functioning, people say, no, that's the national catastrophe. We have to do something. We have a third bridge. Bouygues is the company that came, they built it. And well, sometimes they like to show off. So even if they don't want to go to pass by on the clouds, driving with the third bridge. But no, rainy season, if you see it, my brother, we have nowhere like flood on the bridge. Not only that we have that flood, but other thing, when the estimate of cars, if it is below, they projected. Mm-hmm. And get ready for what I'm going to tell you. The state of Ivory Coast has to pay money to the French company. It's a toll. Some people have a toll. So have to toll. If it is lower, the state has to give money. Another example. They say, the country should not be like in the telecommunication sector. We have the landline, and then we have the mobile sector. They took Côte d'Ivoire Telecom. I'm going to say to me. They took Côte d'Ivoire Telecom. France Telecom took Côte d'Ivoire Telecom. France Telecom is a state company in France, but in the name of privatization, that state company in France came and took our state company.
You see, I need some clarification.
Let me finish on this one. And now, so when Babo wanted to say, we need to have a company that is going to be involved like in the mobile sector. They say, no. In the name of the Washington Consensus, the state has to be outside. Anything that is private and private business. Guess what? France Telecom created a mobile company that is controlling 50% of the traffic in mobile telephony in Ivory Coast. Orange. For 10 years, our leaders, Babu, even Ouattara, they put there, they said, no, we have to do something. Negotiation over 10 years. Finally, they came with this. We're going to combine both Orange Telecom, which is for France, which belongs to France, and then Côte d'Ivoire Telecom in the hands of France Telecom. We're going to we're going to merge those two companies, and guess what? The state of France is going to have 69% of the shares, and my country is going to have 31% of the shares. How are you going to be developed?
When you say they took, I want to know the African agency in this kind of relationships, because this is supposedly an African country, or these are supposedly African states. How does one sovereign nation come and takes that, like you say, takes something from what is the role of the African elite in some of these relationships?
Yeah, Mjiba would have given a better answer. We have a corrupt African elite. Yeah, because listen, I know some of my friends that work at the IMF and World Bank. I see them, I meet with them. When they see me talking like this, no, you should not be talking about sovereignty. Why people are going to kill you? Oh, don't talk about nationalism and Pan Africanism. But how are you going to educate your people if you don't even want to talk about the burning issues? So, because they are happy to have their jobs, and because they want to fit into the system put into place, by the neo-colonial, by the global governance, that they don't even want to raise that issue. So there are people who are not many to talk like that. And this is how then the people that we put there, like for instance, I think it's in Ivory Coast, if you want to become president, you don't talk like me. You don't do what I'm saying. No, you don't talk like that. If you talk like that, in the minds of the people, the French system will come and break you. But one thing they don't know is this: there is a revival of Pan Africanism. The rules must fall, and then the Black Lives Matter, the anti-CFA Frank movement, the economic justice fighters in Southern Africa, and then all those things, and then the reclaiming of the African value system, like we saw in the Accra Declaration. People are waking up, and then the people who are going to be the leaders in Francophone countries in a couple of years will be those who care about the sovereignty of their nations, will be those who want to defeat or to reduce the influence of neocolonialism. And that's why I'm confident that now we are walking on the wave of the future.
Okay. As we walk on the wave of the future, let's walk on to figuring out how we can resolve this issue, because it sounds like these Francophone African countries are so entrenched with the CFA Franc zone that it's very difficult to get out, like they're in the middle of a spider web. So what do you think maybe the first or second step would be for them to really detangle themselves from this Franc zone? Because, for example, perhaps Mr. Ouattara can't just roll up to France and say, listen, give me back my money. We're not giving you 50 to 6% of our foreign reserves next year. That may not be the best approach. So what do you think the best approach is? That may be the most revolutionary approach, but it may not be the best approach.
Yeah. There are some people who say that, they want, for instance, Ivory Coast to come out of the CFA Franc zone. Unless, the context is right, that's not something I will suggest. Because when we know the extractive power of neocolonial powers. But I think that within ECOWAS, there's a project for us to have a common currency. Ghana, Nigeria, those Anglophone countries, they have their own currencies. They're trying. It is maybe they are not maybe the best currencies of the world, but Ghana has its currency, and Nigeria. So there's a project for all those to try and bring together those common currencies, Naira, CD, and then the CFA franc. There are people who are working on that within ECOWAS, but at the same time, you can the pressure for France to go and to delay all those things. So for me, that would be the best approach for us to have one common currency with a line with the Pan-African idea, but now, if history is favorable and then a country can come out, yes, but we have to try and do that. We have to try and do that.
Okay, so what do we think the way forward is? We know that one currency is the way forward. Will we get to one currency in the next 5 years or 10 years? But around this concept of the CFA Franc zone, how do we begin to educate the people and let people really begin to see the damaging effects of the CFA Franc zone? What do you think the next step would be for that?
Okay, the burden is on us. And that's why I was so excited about this second Kwame Nkrumah Pan-African Intellectual and Cultural Festival. Beautiful platform. I was not even aware of the existence of that platform. And some people, we're going to learn about what we do. And second thing, we as Pan-Africanists, we have to be more serious because we have some projects, some ideas about that, and we need to write, and we need to make sure that the lady in the market, the person in the street, that can understand that whatever trade that he or she is doing, is affected, by that CFA Franc stuff. So this is the work we're doing, and then the burden is on us. And then I have some ideas, and then of course I'm not going to mention here in this radio because it's a part of the strategic struggle.
Okay. The program is still Interrogating Africa with Dr. Eden Adote and Dr. Bijiba Freywat. And we interrogating Pan Africanism in the 21st century and the CFA Frank Zone with Dr. Lagoke. And before we go, we've almost run out of time. But then some will even ask, is there really a need for a common currency for the Pan-African project to succeed? And if there is, how is the CFA zone obstructing this project?
Yeah, because they don't, the French, can I say that? With the system, with colonialism and neocolonialism, we are captive markets. That's the idea. We are captive markets. And then the tools they put into place are supposed to keep us in bondage forever. So we believe that there are some secrets or some inside information that the French are doing everything possible for them, for us to lead the CFA French. Like I told you in the beginning, all those countries they left, but they know that. Listen, you sell your cocoa, you sell coffee, and everything that you do, and then part of the money, like half of the money, in dollars, you get it, or in euros, or in dollars first. Half the money has to be in the French public treasury, and then so when they give us the money that we need to use, they convert it like into CFA franc, which is not as high as the dollar or the euro. And then you cannot imagine, the volume of money they're making. If they use that money to go on the international market, the transaction, to go and place that money in North Korea, what you don't know anything about it? Me either. You see what I'm saying? So they have all that system for them to make enough profit, and then for us, to be in a state of bondage. And this has, to stop. And then we need to enlighten our people, and we need to organize. And then the common currency is a possibility, and then it's going to. No, I'm not talking about the entire continent of Africa, but at least West Africa, we can have a common currency. And our people, the Europeans, they did it, or we can do it. Even people may think that we're different from them.
Okay, thank you so much for that. You were listening to Interrogating Africa with Dr. Eden Adote and Dr. Mjiba Freywat. And I'm going to turn over to Dr. Adote, who's going to thank all of our people.
Thank you, my co-host, who is soon going to be the only host for Interrogating Africa for at least a year. I'm really looking forward to my 1 year rest. So we've come to the end of another exciting edition, and we've been looking at Pan-Africanism in the 21st century and the CFA zone. We've been privileged to have our very good friend, Dr. Nyaka Lagoke, who is with the Department of History and Political Science at Montgomery College, Maryland in the U.S., and the founder of the Revival of Pan-Africanism Forum. The website for that is www.revivalofpanafricanism.org. It is a public forum that engages a permanent conversation on African issues from a Pan-African perspective. So if you are really interested in Pan-African issues, the place to go for such discussions is the revivalofpanafricanism.org. We would like to thank our usual sponsors, Yuri Lodge, the home of cross-cultural experience, for the packages. You can reach them on 0302 513386 or 7 or 0544306255 for your lodgings, meetings, and events. You can also continue this discussion on our social media platforms. The WhatsApp number is 0555400508, and the Twitter handle is at Intero Africa, and the Facebook page is Intero Africa. We stream this live on our Facebook page, so you can go back for a playback of this video. I'd like to thank the production team, Nelly JB, and Mr. Peter Azar, the technical producer, and of course my former executive producer, now turned co-host, Dr. Bijiba Freywat. Until next week, keep on interrogating Africa.